say make money, money, make money, money, money. Make money, money, make money, money, money. Money makes the world.
Welcome back in. You guys are here with Bruce, Gordo, and George. We're going to run this one pretty ruthlessly, so we're going to go quick with a couple news briefs, and then we're going to jump right into it. Today's stock du jour is Meta.
That's right.
Ooh, I wore my headset.
The stock formerly known as Facebook. That's right.
I think we should do this episode only in Oculus. Oculus
Oh, that's
only.
brilliant. Well, I got to, towel mine off because, I just used it. My wife and I use it together.
What
you know
have
what I
you
mean?
been doing with your Oculus?
Precursor here. You guys know this? We're a podcast, and we like to talk a little bit about stocks, talk a little shit to each other, and then make a call, bull, bear, and then what we actually think at the end of the show. Before we kick everything off, don't listen to anything we say. Anything we say can and will be used against you, and generally is not advice. It's simply our opinion. So with that, let's start with the news brief. I think there was an election that happened a couple weeks ago. Boom.
Trump wins the presidency.
Man, it wasn't even close. Like he just
It was like the Tyson fight. It was
absolutely
basically like
dismantled Kamala.
it was embarrassing for me personally because I talked so much confident shit about how the polls were wrong and how it was gonna be a blowout. I mean,
Wait, this
I've
is
never
going
been
on
more
our
wrong.
tracker, isn't it? We got to put this on the tracker.
there was no. I don't know how that ties to.
Bruce has to make up
all
some performance somewhere.
Dude, SMCI, that's not even worth talking about anymore, but we will talk about it in a second.
Yeah.
Anyway, back on the election, what do you guys think? How do you think this impacts the markets? Gordo?
I'd say that, first of all, uncertainty alleviation is great, and people now know that the tax cuts are going to be permanent. Tariffs are still a huge question mark. Like, people are already walking it back a little bit, saying, oh, maybe Trump just meant that he was going to use that as leverage. Or I had somebody float this crazy idea to me that ideally, or Trump is going to want to move all that labor to Mexico and make a deal with them to get them to pay for the wall. They don't think all that labor, that was done in China, get that somehow negotiated over to Mexico, which is kind of silly. Another idea I heard is that because they're so automated, this makes more sense to me too, is that China really could bring a lot of that, any automation or any production they're doing, they just bring it to America, and that gets out of the tariff and gets under our control. But it's still the Chinese, so I don't know if that really works optically. But anyway, I think that being long some kind of production, in the United States, some kind of domestic production, maybe. I feel like markets are not stupid, and by now every single analyst desk has figured out, okay, who's got a bunch of their cogs in China, who hasn't moved yet. Like, making money on that trade, people talk about prisons, right? They talk about law and order stuff. All this stuff seems really trite to me. I just think in general, you want to be long beta, or I should say, the market is going to do well. I think now that the election's already occurred, and you have essentially a low regulation president. And the final thing I'll add is that the bonds tanked when Trump won, so people were expecting inflation. So that's something that we all have to worry about and think about how to be positioned for.
Yeah, long-term interest rates rose, right? So that's hurting the real estate market, for example. All the real estate stocks went down, but anything touching Elon, not called X, did quite well. So what do you guys think about the Elon trade? Do you think there's actually meat behind that, and this election was the best trade for him, putting his $119 million?
By the way, I read some crazy Starlink theory, too, that Starlink's changed the election. I don't know if you saw that. So basically, man, it's amazing how the billionaires own the press and Trump managed to win. What a shocker.
I think I think there's a couple of things that are probably going to happen. I think the first thing is that Trump is really almost over-indexed to the market. It's not something that exists in the background of his presidency. It is very front and center for how he thinks about economic performance. So
he takes it as his own scorecard, right? A lot of times.
Yeah. And so I think he'll do everything in his power to juice the market, and hopefully he doesn't do anything irrational. I'm glad Jerome Powell came out and said I don't care what he does or what he says. Like, I'm not going to leave this until my position is officially over. And like, honestly, I think the best thing that Trump could do for the market generally is just be a lame duck president where he doesn't do much. I'm afraid that's not the like route that
like
he's going to take. And so I think he's going to try to cut interest rates as much as he can. I think he's going to like deploy tariffs across as much of the as much of China as he possibly can. I think he's going to add to the deficit. I think it's going to just continue to like debase the currency like crazy. Like, I think we're going to have a pretty hot market, but we're going to just, end up paying for this in the long run, probably not the short run. I actually think, as I've often told Don, that things like Bitcoin, things like gold are actually a reasonably good play. Like, if you think that like we're going to just enter a period of just rampant debasement, which I think we actually are. But I mean, look, it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, like, I think the best thing he could do for the economy is just let it go. Like, not even look at it twice and be like, look, I got nothing left to prove. I got a second term. I'm good. But, we can tell from some of his choices, at least for the cabinet positions, I don't think that's the approach he's taking.
Yeah, as of this printing of this, right, we have Getz being debated as the attorney general. Republicans coming out and saying he's banging 17-year-olds, showing up with coke on his nose, on the floor.
The best line I saw in that one was they're bringing what was it? They're bringing justice to the to pedophilia. Or pedophilia to justice. Sorry, it's Matt Gaetz to the.
One of those is actually good, I think.
One we're not doing.
Probably the first way he said it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even. Yeah, we just lost every sponsor possible. Yeah, poor Matt. Some of his policies are kind of. I mean, he's basically kind of interesting libertarian policies. Some of his policies are sane. Like he's one of the few pro legalization of marijuana Republicans in Florida. He's just a little soft on pedophilia.
But the view is he's not going to get approved by the Senate. Like,
I mean, you wouldn't believe that, but I don't know. Like, I feel like Trump now. Doesn't he have to swing his dick around and like completely just?
I think they're going to release. Like, he quit Congress 2 days before he got appointed. Like, there's a big like dossier on him. I think they're going to find a way to release it, like they did with Trump's tax returns, and it's just going to like. It's just going to implode in his face.
Doesn't the House have to vote him out? And they won't do that again after the guy that got voted out. The liar
in New York.
Yeah, George Santos, right?
George Santos, thank you. No, George Santos' name. Like, I think they learned their lesson. They will not kick him out. He's already quit.
No, he quit.
Yeah.
He left.
Still, though, I think Trump's going to stuff him. He's going to be like a recess appointment, and then he'll be there for like, a long time. And by then, he'll get everybody pounded in line. Like, I just feel like Trump he's freaking bulletproof now. I think he's Superman.
Trump's got 2 years of power for the next elections, and then the Republicans don't need to pander to him anymore. So I mean,
Republicans he doesn't care about like the legacy of like the Republicans staying in power and that kind of thing. I think he's just
but I mean, I'm talking about the rest of the Republicans doing what he wants, right? So I mean, there's plenty that know he's crazy, and they fall in line to get his endorsements. But like once he's a true lame duck president after the midterms, like there's no reason that they need to follow him blindly.
So, long story short, I guess. I mean, what do you think? This is good for the market somehow, George?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I think the stock cuts. I mean, I think you saw a lot of it already. I'm with Bruce. I think short term is probably good. Long term, I question, things like the Elon, like watching Tesla stock. That's the one that baffles me, honestly. It's like, okay, he's going to do away with, the EV premiums, and it'll be good for Tesla because none of their competitors, the argument goes none of their competitors are going to be able to, continue to compete in the EV market, which to me, I don't think makes any sense. It's like the people already, like you can't sell enough EVs. They're not cheap enough, and so you take away incentives. I don't see how that's going to help Tesla.
We should cover this on like a Tesla like stock review. But like the thing with Tesla is it doesn't really trade as like an auto company. Like you have to believe a bunch of things if you're investing in Tesla. You have to believe like their AI thesis comes true. Their robot thesis comes true. Their like driverless Uber thesis.
Gordo was
comes
controlling it in the back. We talked about this last time.
I mean, it's one of those things I think where like it's kind of tethered to like the Elon like identity more than anything else at this point, as opposed to like fundamentals or anything else. But like people that are investing right now in Tesla are believing like 4 or 5 things. They're like need to believe to like justify the valuation. I think
You sound like you'd be a short.
No, I'm not. I don't doubt him. Like I think Elon does have the juice to do some of the things that other people can't. I mean, he's proven it, right?
So here's the last question, and we should move on. But like, do you think it was really evil, or well, I won't call it evil genius, but do you think it's genius that Elon backed Trump? And some people say, oh, his buying Twitter was really allowed him to do that and basically get his president. So it's going to help all of his other businesses. So it's almost like the lost leader. Is he that forward thinking? Is he that smart? Do you think that, or things just happen to work out his way?
No, I think he's that vain. Like he needed a platform where he could tell the entire world how he was thinking at every given moment in time, and he was willing to pay $45 billion to do that. That would be my perspective. I will say the guy though that escaped from this whole election smarter than everyone was the guy they wrote about in the Wall Street Journal, who like on all these like different secondary markets for betting who's going to win and who isn't, put $30 million to work on a bet that Trump would win and returned 80, and he was running his own polls, and basically like his verdict from all of his own polling information was the actual polls are wrong. You have to ask people who they think their neighbor is going to vote for, and that poll is right. That poll will tell you actually who's going to win. Isn't that funny?
That's brilliant, actually.
You're too embarrassed to say you're voting for Trump, but you're okay to say your neighbor is.
Exactly.
Don't tell nobody, but I think our
Brad.
neighbor's a Trump guy. That's awesome.
All right. Well, should we move on to the main event?
Should we move on to the main event, or do we want to let Gordo take a victory lap on SMCI?
Oh yeah.
It's almost too easy. I mean, I'm like the freaking oracle of the show with this thing, me with my Moby Dick, I keep harpooning it over and over. It's hard to watch. This much winning.
It's funny. After Gordo's first at bat, he was batting 1,000, and then he went hitless for the next 8.
Hey, it's the life of a short, man.
He hit a grand slam. That was all he needed up front.
That's right.
It only takes one.
That's right. It only takes one. So yeah, these guys, it's a big shocker. Auditor stood up and said, "You know what? These numbers are fine. I'm signing off on these. Go ahead, Supermicro. I'm stamping your Q. It's all in your K. It's so good. It's all good. Everybody was wrong. ENY was wrong. Poor Supermicro. Of course. So another question is, can they get a plan in front of these guys pretty soon? They can get a 6-month plan to get back in line. I don't know, man. I feel like there's a lot of risk. But I guess the one thing I would say is I feel like, from what I've heard recently talking to people in the field, Dell and HP are still so far behind that people's memories are kind of short here. And like Supermicro's still the only one that's got, dancing shoes. The only one that can ramp and scale the latest liquid cooling technologies. And like you would think after we had a full year here where Dell has had a chance to get its shit together, it's like the market has existed, and these guys still can get their shit together. So I think it's a buying opportunity, potentially. In fact, right now I'm going to switch to buy rated on Supermicro.
Wow. I did hear that like Susquehanna maybe and a couple other brokers have taken like a 5% position long in Supermicro.
So I mean, there was a rumor that Nvidia was diverting chips elsewhere, given their troubles. So good. That would not be good for them. And then Cisco announced they're entering this market.
Again, they've been in server VPS forever.
What's that?
They don't have any appetite for 11% margins. They just don't. They
had the server business. It was pretty.
Yeah, this tiny little IC. Was it UCS or yeah?
UCS.
Yeah,
they can't grow anywhere else. They've got to find, better to grow at low margins than not grow at all.
I wrote a report on the UCS when it came out too about how they basically had a special sort of memory configuration so you could store more. They basically put more memory in it so you could have more VMs. Good deal, great innovation. Yeah, but they were a niche in the marketplace so before. So now they want to join the 11% mark. I guess it was closer to 15 this last quarter for Supermicro after they pre-announced their miss.
I bet Dell and HP get better margins.
Well, because they sell service with stuff, right? But these guys can't buy. Elon will not buy services. But I will say, man, having Elon as your account, like, is like in Silicon Valley, like everyone's going to say, I want that X.AI, because Supermicro had that video released about, hey, look what we've done, and holy shit, I think everyone's like, I want one. So I think Supermicro, are they the best accountants in the AI business? I don't think so. They have the best FP&A and accounting department. Not sure, but I do know they do have the only servers in town for AI. Really.
What do you think about a takeover?
By who? First of all, Charles has a big chunk, and he's a chairman. It's not super voting, but I think he owns like 7% or something. I don't know. It's a ridiculous mess, dude. Their culture is,
Feels like if you're a Cisco though, or if you're a Dell or HP, like this is the time to make a big move. Like they have the relationships, they have a supply chain, they have a bunch of bad accounting. Like
Supermicro or the CEO's old, but there's no way he's gonna. Sorry, he's mature. He's like pushing 70 or something.
But I don't know.
So,
does he? If he doesn't have the control, then they could run it hostile even.
Yeah, that's hard
We
though,
need
man.
a good hostile takeover. We haven't had one in years.
I know.
So
Well,
much more
you heard it
coming.
here, guys. Cisco, you're a bunch of weenies if you don't buy Supermicro. How about that?
Putting it out there.
We're gonna goad those guys. Here we go. I think it's a brilliant idea. You heard it here. I won't part of the banking fee when whoever.
Chuck Robbins is gonna slap you silly.
Yeah, I've been doing jujitsu and I have rage problems sometimes. I'm told. So
you know Chuck Robbins' claim to fame was he played hoops at North Carolina with Michael Jordan.
Did you really?
He's a pretty good guy. Yeah, he was. I think Chuck was like on the practice squad, but he claims to have played with Michael Jordan.
It's still pretty good. Alrighty. Well, victory lap complete. Shall we turn it over to the main event?
please do.
All right. Today we're talking about.
And in this corner, weighing 130 pounds. Oh, sorry. Keep
Yeah,
going.
Today we are talking about everybody's favorite thirst trap. The one, the only, Meta.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were talking Grinder.
Oh man, I was talking about Grinder anyway.
So George, I think you're the bull. Nope,
No,
you're the
Gordo's
bear.
the bull.
Gordo
So I'm
is
doing-
the bull. It was a reverse coin toss. Opposite day. Okay, so Gordo, I'll hand it over to you. Kick us off.
All right, so I really struggle with the title, but the overall theme here is: can you guys see that?
We can.
Can you see it?
It's the Zuck transformed.
And it says giving the world its AI Enema, because that's really what Meta is. It's the Meta AI Enema. So anyway, it's a play on AI. And it's not that clever, but I just thought it's basically sticking this technology up the entire world's ass, whether it likes it or not. We'll get back to that. So this is the comp table that our intern did. I don't know, I hate it, to be honest, but it shows.
Fire up.
Yeah, I know. So the next 12 months, EV to EBITDA, like Meta's like 12 times, and like versus an average of 25. So I'm gonna argue, hey, kind of cheap. Annual revenue growth for the next year is modeled around 15%. So that's not super high, but hey, these guys are doing like 180 billion in revenue in the next 12 months. So they have over 3 billion daily visitors. So like pretty amazing. EPS growth of 26%. These are estimates for the street in 2024. EPS growth of 12% in 2025. I guess I would say broadly speaking, I think part of what's sort of in these numbers is that this is fundamentally still a company that makes most of its money off of advertising. On Facebook. So it's fundamentally an advertising play. There's a macro component. I think that you could argue there's a slowdown. There's been a lot of pressure on margins too, because these guys have been spending, tens of billions of dollars on AI in the cloud. And that kind of gets me to kind of like my three key bull cases. And these are kind of obtuse the way I've written them. But, first of all, AI. So there's only going to be a handful of companies like on the planet that can spend, $50 billion a year on data centers and mostly AI. NVIDIA is a beneficiary here, but those are the chips inside of all these companies. They're an enabler, not a competitor. But these guys they've kind of zigged where OpenAI zagged. Like they're leveraging a really large, all the learnings from all the data they have from having so many billions of users across Instagram and off. They have all that data from photos on Instagram. They have all that Facebook usership for now a couple decades, and they've been working on AI for many many years. I mean, I couldn't even I've been listening to the Acquired podcast about Mark, and he's a pretty amazing guy, and he's kind of made a lot of the right strategic moves to get to the point where they are a 1.4 trillion market cap company now. And that's kind of a good way to segue into point number 2 here is that just don't bet against, there's this character from Happy Days. It's Fonzie, right? Is it with an N? I think it's Fonzie. But it was Harry
Yes.
Winkler. And I feel like that's kind of like, Mark is kind of cool now. Like whoever his publicist is, I've been trying to find his number. I don't know who he is. But Mark went from being, and Data the Robot to this guy. But, the thing about fascinating about Mark is he got a perfect on the SAT, and then he got a perfect on all the SAT 2s, which I think is since they don't even do that, exam anymore. It's like subject matter stuff like AP history or something. Like he just took 3, or biology or physics. He took like those without studying and got perfect on those 2s. This guy's like a serial, business starter. Like, he almost sold Facebook. But then he, for $800 million to Yahoo, and then chose not to. So he really has made a lot of the right
Yahoo is
moves.
always so close. So
Yeah,
close
I
to
know.
so many big
So
wins.
So close. So anyway, my point is like this guy's got the firepower. He's got the head start. He's got the intelligence. This guy's a coder from Harvard. There's only a few companies that have the firepower to go after AI, and these guys have the user base that they've been proven time and again, to be able to monetize. So I guess I would just sort of preempt the bear case argument that these guys are kind of evil and like. They made some mistakes, and there's big lawsuits out there, and antitrust, and like stuff about basically how social media went after kids' brains. Like big lawsuits, Supreme Court stuff. And first of all, let me just remind everyone that Trump just won. He's got the Supreme Court stacked, all his buddies. Every time I try to bet for like the rule of law or corporate accountability or something's gonna get cleaned up. I'm just going to take the other side, the inverse side of that, and I'm just kind of being a little facetious because I don't think Mark's necessarily evil. I think he's just a corporation it's a big company that's very influential, and it's hard to get it right perfect every time. He has a stock price to worry about too, and he's not the biggest company, but 1.4 trillion in cap, like they could be I think Nvidia's already proven you can be a 4 trillion cap company. They aren't that expensive, like 19 times earnings, like. For like there's no real competitor to these guys. People have been saying they're going to die.
Have you heard of the TikTok? Those kids are
Yeah,
talking
it's a bunch
about?
of videos. It's not social networking, really. I mean, yeah, but Reels is doing well. Instagram stories are doing well. Like, these are, like, minor things. And plus, there's all kinds of, like, issues with them potentially getting banned and, being fucked with by Trump. It sounds like they wanted Trump to win. And so maybe that's bad for those guys. But anyway, I like this. I feel like this is a nice buying opportunity as Trump comes in. And not that I was a Trump fan, per se, but I think the markets will like it. People will invest again in advertising. They'll benefit on that. And these are going to be one of the gold rush stocks for AI that's not, that can be still a lot bigger from a cap perspective. And Mark got a great publicist, and that's another good reason. And I'll pass the mic.
I like how you say evil always wins. I don't know that Mark is evil, but I don't think he has a
I
conscience.
said he wasn't. But, there's like a lot of evil. Like Facebook's accused of being evil for like, squashing whistleblowers, for, trying to get our kids addicted, with, outrage and, like
Yeah, they just don't have a conscience.
But I'm just saying they will not be held. I'm saying that's probably. I'm trying to diffuse a criticism in advance because I think a lot of people say that there's a lot of ambiguous liabilities associated with their behavior. I mean, but they're a company in the vanguard of a lot of areas, right? In the middle of a pandemic, they were one of the leading information platforms. Like that's a tough thing to get 100% right. And so they're going to be sued by everybody all the time. I think that they're not as bad as perhaps people might, paint them in the media. But that's all I'm trying to say.
How much of their like growth and valuation and like ability to justify or defend this value is predicated upon like their foray into AI and into Llama versus like their kind of core platforms today?
I think there's a certain amount of it seems like there's a debate here about whether or not they're going to see the ROI because they've spent so much money on the metaverse, right? And like to this day, and Llama's basically it's sort of classic Facebook. Let us build it first, and we'll how to make money, on it later. And that was the story that they had originally, right before ads. And a lot of internet companies have struggled. So now it's like basically saying trust us. And there's some, I think, it's not the most expensive stock. I think there's definitely a certain amount of skepticism going back to this comp table, in the estimated growth rate. And then let's say, it's hard to find, like, I guess let's look at, say, where's Microsoft on here? And they have so much other crap, it's hard to kind of pull out what the expectations are.
Microsoft's right above them.
Yeah, but even I guess if you look at that, like, their growth rate's similar, and their next 12-month PE is much higher, right? It's at 23 times instead of 31. So Microsoft is getting more credit, I think, in their stock. Their EV to revenue growth, and we like to look at, it's like, I think these numbers are insane. It's like 84 times versus 40 versus 50. Just looks weird to me. But in general, it's definitely, there's something I think weighing on it. People are saying, God, you guys are spending an awful lot of money. Is it going to pay off? There's not everyone's going to win this, right? Like, I think there's a fear too that Meta's doing exactly what I think people are worried about, which is commoditizing, democratizing it to such a point that that it gets adopted, in hopes that you make a return on it later and you can kind of claw back that value, and that's worked for them. But that's not how OpenAI is doing, right? They have $4 billion in revenue or something, doubling last I heard. So there's some of that in the stock. I think there's some skepticism about holy mackerel. I want to say they're spending $50 billion this year in capex.
Yeah,
it's a big number.
Yeah, I wonder, like, for all of these companies, like, how like the investment or like the overinvestment in capex will potentially impact their valuations. Like, obviously, cash flow will be very significantly impacted by a huge investment in capex. I don't know. It feels like investors to date are willing to overlook that. The issue, I think, though, with Meta as opposed to like, Alphabet or Microsoft is that those companies are monetizing AI even today, and like there's probably a like more near-term pathway for them to continue that monetization. Whereas like Meta is leading, I think, like it has thought leadership and open source leadership in the AI spectrum. But I'm just like, it's unclear to me like exactly what the plans are for monetization around that, and like how that ultimately justifies their their massive kind of upfront capex cost, which I think will, like, if anything, get much bigger in the future as opposed to moderate.
I think we might have lost Gordo.
Well, actually, you're asking me a question. I just wonder if that was for all of us. So, I mean, I think that, it's tough when you're literally, charging like basically nothing for Llama. I mean, like they are seeing a return allegedly on the advertising, like a more efficient, a better ROI from advertising. And so, but the sense is, like there's a lot on the come, and they're giving a lot away for free still. And
it's also a strategy to get data, right?
Yeah,
If you're
get
building-
usage and improve the model. I think it's the right model for somebody who's playing a little bit of catch up, but I don't know how much. And they just have so much cash, right, and such a robust business model. Like they really, and these also have incredibly intelligent, staff who are coders by nature. Who I feel like they have a right to win here. I mean, they've definitely gambled a lot. I think on the quote metaverse. I think, but I really wonder if all that money is spent. It's not really stranded investment in the Google. I'm sorry, what do they call the Facebook glasses? I think that's just really interesting. The Ray-Ban stuff looks really cool. Like I think they're on the edge of owning that. So there's a lot of ways to monetize that $50 billion or whatever it is that they've been spending, this year on capex, on data centers. Like they've got a lot of devices that could use that. I think that they're investing in advertising, for AI. So I think that it remains to be seen. But it is, to your point, Bruce. I think there's something in the multiple that kind of shows that people are a little skeptical at all this money that's been spent. And he was transparent, right? He's like, "Yeah, trust me," is what he basically said.
Yeah.
Mark, cool Mark, not Android Mark.
Trust the evil genius.
Yeah.
I will say, like, the power of the Facebook platform in some ways is like just so unprecedented. Like I was going through some of the research before the call, and like they basically turned on advertising in the second quarter of 2023 and did like $1 billion in revenue, and one full year later, they had turned that billion into 10 billion in revenue. Like meaning like just by turning on one ad feature in one part of one application in their platform, they were able to generate $10 billion in revenue in like basically like 12 to 18 months. I mean, that's just like unprecedented. Like the scale of the platform touching like 3 billion people is just like I mean, it's incredible. And the company's going to do like $100 billion in EBITDA, like in the next 12 months. It's like
it's insane.
It's just
It's a war chest, man. Like they can take some really, and they're not exactly incompetent kind of monkeys doing this. Like they've been doing, coding is in their blood at scale, right? They're going to be able to take this AI technology and use it, across a gigantic base in an effective way and learn quickly from their mistakes. As long as they don't let the genie out of the box. Out of the bottle, right? The AI Terminator 2 scenario doesn't come to pass, but like, I'm trying to remember, it's basically Mark is the one who talks about how dangerous AI is more than Elon. I can't remember there was this feud between them two.
I think it's Elon, but I will say, like, going back to our original news flash, like Trump winning could not have been helpful for Facebook. Like Trump winning basically guarantees that like TikTok won't be kicked out of the country.
God damn it, are you the bear or the host?
TikTok is by far their biggest competitor.
Can we get the bear case from the bear and not the host?
And with that, we will turn it over to the official bear, George.
2-on-1.
George, the stock.
You usually got to pay extra for that, guy.
I have an opinion at the end, but I think it's
I can see where it's going. I'd be shocked. I will be shocked when you're a bear.
You will be shocked.
All right.
Wait. So that was it, Gordo? You had one slide.
We agreed to.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. All right. Then you guys are not going to be happy.
Did it again.
Not going to be happy with me.
Gotta get lazier.
George, we need ruthless execution here.
I'm no Mark Zuckerberg.
By the way, so we're 31 minutes in. So Mac, we're trying to go to 6:30 at the most. That would be.
All right. I can make my case fast.
Yeah, 21 minutes.
All right, I've titled this Meta Getting Unfriended by Washington, and I've got a little frowning Trump there next to a TikTok logo. So some of the stuff that our wise host Bruce was talking about here. All right, so I'm going to agree with everything that Gordo said. Like Meta is a great company. It's a well-run company, amazing ad tech, unparalleled returns on investments. I mean, I've invested in Meta several times and sold probably too early several times. And I would just hear over and over again all of my early stage portfolio companies on the venture side telling me, you can't get a better return than advertising on Meta. And I just kept hearing that over and over again, and that's remained true for a long time, even as the companies raised prices. And so, like, they just deliver value that no one else can. Has unparalleled data on its users. It knows so much about you and I that are on its platform. That's part of what makes it so effective. It knows what you like, where you spend your time, what.
You're the bear, right? You understand that how that with the bears. This is really a good bear case, by the way. Oh, it's the daddy issue game. I know that game. You're pretty good looking for a chubby girl. I got it. All right, let's do it.
Yes. Anyways, they're pretty good at M&A when they're allowed to do so. See WhatsApp and Instagram. They're also great at imitation, something that Apple's been well renowned for. That they are actually awesome at watching their competitors build something that is great, whether it's building Reels after TikTok or Stories after Snapchat, and doing it just as well, if not better, than the original. And then the company has an attractive valuation. And so for a leader in its space, I don't really understand why, the valuation is so low. As Gordo pointed out, like, this is just an insanely low-valued stock.
Great bear pitch. It's too cheap. I agree.
It's too cheap. So what is the market trying to tell us here? And I think that's screaming that there's something wrong. And so, what is that? Well, let me tell you. I think one, competition is heating up. So TikTok is coming in. Their stats are extremely impressive. They have the younger viewers' mind share. It's a huge risk to them. Two, market is saturated. Like, you look at all their statistics, they already have the vast majority of the people with computers in the world on their platforms.
It's a glory hole. It's an internet glory hole of sorts. Could you use that analogy?
I thought that's what you called Reddit, but yes.
It gets read afterwards.
It's read afterwards, yes. Regulation is a huge one. So we're going to talk a little bit about getting unfriended by Washington. And then, end of the day, Mark has no checks on him. He is a dictator, so no checks on management. Those stocks always trade at a discount, and for good reason. See the metaverse. So I think there's a lot of risk that's just buried in here, and that's why you're getting the discount. And so I think the question, as we dig into these quickly, at the end will be like, do you believe that, that valuation, that attractive valuation is worth the risk?
Do you
So number one.
believe in love?
What are you singing? Keep the elevator music going while I talk.
It's the Huey Lewis. Do you believe in love? I can
Yes.
make you believe it too. Anyway, go ahead.
Can you do the Saturday Night Live version?
Actually, I don't
My
know
head
it.
to the side.
Jesus Christ, you do a whole fucking slide on TikTok? You have no discipline.
Oh,
All right.
Well, I'm gonna hit it fast.
You see what's happening
Hit
with
it and
Bruce?
quit it.
That's what he said. So Bruce, look at Bruce can fall asleep. Look at this. He's falling asleep.
There's a lot of words on this slide.
Is people one spend more time on TikTok, double the amount than they spend on Instagram. Its nearest competitor. So 58 minutes a day for TikTok users versus Instagram users at 29 minutes a day. TikTok also has a larger share of Gen Zers. So 64% of Gen Zers use it also as a search engine. It's basically for commerce. What's that, Gordo?
Tell who owns it. I'm confused. Are this Chinese or
ByteDance,
Singaporean?
the Chinese, as well as Trump supporters, which I'll get to. And so TikTok, at one point, everybody was jazzed up about Facebook or Meta because, TikTok was going to be banned. They were going to just dominate this market. Congress passed a law here at the beginning of the year. They're going to have to basically, they're no longer going to be legal in the U.S. All the app stores are going to have to take them down. Now, Trump won't be in office in time to stop that. However, he will control the enforcement of that, as well as can attempt to appeal it. And, part of the flip-flop, I think, in the Trump administration and why he doesn't move here is Jeff Yass, who is one of his big backers, is a big owner of ByteDance. And so, shockingly, he's changed his position here on TikTok being banned. So when you have somebody like that who helped him buy his way into office, I don't think you're going to see a change of stance here. So TikTok is going to continue to, I think, a lot of their barriers are going to be removed. They're going to be able to compete here. And you're going to continue to see headwinds for, the crown jewel of Facebook, which is Instagram. Social media market is saturated is my second point. So these are all metrics from their most recent quarter. And what you'll see is, a slowing growth rate for overall, daily active people. That's how they're categorizing it now. So, since kind of Q of 23, every quarter you see that growth rate ticking down. They have been able to, when you think about like how they make money, it's how many people are on the platform, how many ad impressions they're able to serve to those people, and the price per ad, right? That's basically what drives their revenue, right? So one, you're already saturated the people. You're probably going to get, call it minimal growth there going forward because, again, everybody who would use this has this. You're going to, can they get more ads per square inch of space? Can they get you to stay on longer? They have with AI recently mentioned they are getting people to stay on longer. However, it's continuing to slow down at an increasing pace. And so if you look at, like, for example, U.S. and Canada ad impressions and the growth of ad impressions, back in 2023, they were in the low to high 20s, depending on the quarter, until that fourth quarter of growing ad impressions. And then you saw it go down to mid-teens, and then these last two quarters, it's 8 and 7%. So this is a chart that's falling fast. They are saturating what they can do on the ad impression front. And then you say, okay, well, can you charge more per ad? And they have been increasing that. So you have seen kind of the last several quarters, starting 4Q, they started increasing prices. 2%, 5%, 9%. That's a game that only lasts so long, and so this next quarter was also 9%. So that seems to be flatlining as well. So I just think eventually, and you see these, it's even more pronounced in Europe where you see ad impressions going down faster, price per ads are already flattening to going down. I think they've saturated this game, and so the growth that they've had is just not there. You don't have any more levers to pull.
But even if you look at these charts, it looks like their ARPU effectively is still growing.
It's been
Relatively
growing, but it's going
consistently.
down, right? It's like the second effect. So, yes, it's still growing, but it's growing each time at a slower and slower rate. So that to me says eventually like that growth is going to stop, right? Because where's it going to come from? Are you going to be able to show more ad impressions? You know, the data's not showing that. I think eventually people get fed up and go to TikTok if all they're getting is ads and they're not actually getting content. You know, can you charge more? Maybe there's more price. You know, if there's one variable that I would bet on, it's maybe price elasticity. Like you can continue to charge more because they're still more effective than the next best thing. But
user growth still looks like it's trending in the right direction, albeit slower. It's like a law of large numbers type thing, right? Like they've gotten much
yeah,
bigger.
but you're not going to have. I think the days of like they grew 20% this year. Market's forecasting
Cyclicality. It's the
15%. That
advertising
goes down to
market.
10% the year after. Like this becomes a single-digit, non-exciting grower, and so I think that's part of what you're seeing, reflected in the multiple of the stock.
What percentage of the AI market has been monetized? You think of
Well,
all
because
the
AI
next,
and
the next
the
10
ads that
years,
they
what
showed
inning
you.
are we in? If you take all the
What
revenue for AI,
What AI are you talking about, Gordo? They got AI everywhere. So they're already using AI. They talked about the effects of AI having positive, right? People spent more time on the platform. That helped them drive ad impressions, right? More ad impressions because you spend more time. But for Llama, no, there's nothing in here. That's just a CapEx sink. Who knows if they'll see return on that?
oh come on, you've been betting on friggin' Vonzi Zuck, dude.
Is that, as I look at this page, it honestly strikes me as like the first two, Exhibit 1 and 2, are the most important kind of graphs to their fundamental financial health. And it still looks like they're trending in the right direction. They might be a little slower.
Growing at
but
scale, how many billions are they adding? And again, slow down in advertising recently, and things get better at all in the economy. You should see a pretty decent pop. And they've always got Instagram. Facebook is kind of like not as the spring chicken it used to be, but Instagram is still really relevant among the whippersnappers. I understand, and so
Not
I feel
as
like,
popular as TikTok.
and but like, yeah, but they're gonna go, At the end of the day, I still think Facebook's going to be one of the winners. When the AI dust settles, I'm not convinced TikTok will be. Like those guys are great at video, engaging video. But
the thing the thing that doesn't really like for the rest of the graphs, the thing that like strikes me as like maybe interesting, and I don't know if there's a read through here, is that like even though ad impressions in the UK and Europe are going down, that hasn't really showed up in the ARPU. And so,
I mean, they're still positive. They're just going down, right? They're growing at a slower rate. So, that's,
Macro,
these charts are growth rates, right? So, yeah, in the most recent quarter, for Europe, it was 5% growth of ad impressions. And so you're starting to see, that price flatline there for Europe as well. Even go down a little bit, right? The price growth. But it's a second, for those of you who are calculus savvy, it's your second derivative here, right? That's starting to show the change in the inflection. And so I don't think you can continue to say this is a company that's going to grow at the same metrics it has in the past. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. I think AI is going to inflect, cause it to inflect.
I think they've been resilient though. Like they've been able to either like, they can elongate the amount of time that users are like using any of their properties. They can add users. They can increase rates. They can show more relevant information. They can get more users maybe through AI or through some of the things.
What users? Everybody already has it.
But they don't. Look at
unless you're sucking them back from TikTok.
They're still growing like between 3% and 8% every quarter, right? Like if you look at Exhibit 1, I mean they've added like a couple 100 million users in the last year. There's people out there. I mean, look, I wouldn't have thought so either, but it looks like, they've continued to, like, even at scale, I've been at, 3.3 billion users, they continue to add folks, so.
I mean, I think as you have older generations get replaced by younger generations, there is some inherent growth, right? The ones that come in are going to be very social media savvy. The ones going out are not as social media savvy, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, what you're basically betting on, though, is that, like, there is a real change in, like, the trend line here, which hasn't happened yet. Like, you're
look at those ad impressions; they're falling off a cliff.
but
Like
the first
that is
graphs, the first two graphs are the most important graphs. Like the ad impressions, maybe the ad impressions are falling off, but maybe the ad prices have gone up by 2x. Because if you look at the ARPU
They're
per
not.
user,
We have
and if
them.
you look at the number of people on the platform, both of those are up and to the right. It's like you have to bet
at
that
a
like
slowing
those
growth
first two
rate.
graphs,
It's
you
the
have to
same
bet.
thing. It's slowing. So that dotted line there, year over year change, which I cut off. I don't see it, but I think it's single digits there. It's not very large at all. You're talking like mid to low single digits growth.
But you have to bet that almost inverts. I think at their scale, like there's ways of them
I don't think it
manufacturing.
inverts. I think it goes down to a very low single digit percentage. Like you're just not going to have. I think you're going to have the growth the street is expecting, right? Which is in 2 to 3 years you will be in single digit growth. This will not be a growing company anymore. Absent
The street is expecting like 15% EPS growth.
EPS growth, yes,
Right.
revenue growth.
Yeah,
I'm
and
talking.
so if you're expecting 50% EPS growth and like you think this is a very high quality like revenue company, high quality earnings company, like it can trade at like over 1x PEG, like I think. And you yourself think that this trading on it's a fairly like modestly trading, cheaply traded equity.
Gosh, I can see.
I do. I'm just arguing. I'm just telling you the reasons
Do you have
why.
any more slides, or Mr. One Slide?
All right, let's keep going. All right.
Oh my God!
Third
there's
reason
more.
this is a cheap
What's the
stock.
safety word? Jesus Christ!
Is
Attorney
management
General,
is
Attorney
unchecked.
General, stop it! Elephantitis.
All right. So,
Kelly
controlling
Clarkson.
shareholders have a history of putting their interests above everyone else. So, did you guys remember the Viacom example that recently happened?
Oh my
Dude,
God.
this I mean, okay, keep going. I have something
All
to
right.
say about this at the end.
Sherry Redstone. I'll just
wife
talk about
said
the
that too.
Viacom example, just so everybody's on the same page. Sherry Redstone, right, had controlling interests, had voting shares in Viacom. They went to sell the company. She cut herself a better deal than everyone else. In fact, it was going to be a much better deal than everyone else. Shareholders screamed. She continued to shop the company. End of the day, she got a higher share price per share. Plus, for her role, she also got paid a like $70 million severance. She got all these perks that the average shareholder didn't get. So, end of the day, like there is a reason, and these companies historically that have these controlling families, these controlling shareholders, have typically traded at a discount. So that's another reason I would argue here. You have a discount in the stock that's warranted because you have Mark Zuckerberg who's going to do whatever he wants, and he's demonstrated that. Think of the metaverse. He's spent $70 billion to date on the metaverse and has nothing to show for it other than a pair of Ray-Bans and some geeky headgear that no one would wear.
All right, we get your point. Move on.
No, listen, but like Mark Zuckerberg has built a $1.4 trillion company. Everybody who has invested in Facebook has made money. He has earned the
There's
right
people that are-
to spend his capex however he wants to. I mean, this is like a wildly successful company that has
Yeah, he
made
can,
money
but you
for
don't have to as a
investors
shareholder.
hand over
You don't
fist.
have to take it. You can exit, which is what people are doing.
This is a company where, like, at any point in the last 12 years since they went public, you should have given your money to Mark Zuckerberg. The company has returned 1,400% since going public. Like, this is not a company where you're like, management doesn't know what they're doing with my money. Every single person has made money here.
Never has the
So he's
host
done
on
good.
Stock Jocks taken the mic and just berated the bear. I've never seen this before.
I know.
Stop the fight. The ref is beating the shit out of that
Bruce. Save your opinion for the end. Listen, end of the day, he's done well when he's stuck to his knitting, and his knitting is social media. Where he's spending money now is not social media. He spent money on the metaverse. He's spending money on AI models. He's spending money outside of that because his main market is saturated. He has nowhere else to go in that market. He already owns it. He spun up Threads. That was his next best thing. That's not expected to monetize in a huge way.
275 million users.
Yeah, I know, but he's just pulling their attention from one platform that he already owns to another. Like he's not. There's not much left to suck out of that. This is the one that is most important. Fourth and final: regulation and societal backlash. So I've got a nice little AI picture here of the two tech titans with their gloves on, and in reality they don't like each other, Elon and Mark. In fact, I think Elon challenged Mark to a fight, but and Mark was willing to take him, but Elon suddenly went quiet because Mark actually fights MMA and is a trained fighter now and is in much better shape. But Elon has President Trump's ear. Trump also did not like Elon. Why? Because in 2020 he blamed him for some of the election mishaps that happened. When that election was stolen. So, and historically, Zuck has been a supporter of the Democratic Party. He's since taken a more neutral stance. He's tried to get out of the way of politics. But end of the day, like Trump had said, talked about imprisoning Mark Zuckerberg and getting revenge on Mark Zuckerberg. Elon does not like Mark Zuckerberg. So end of the day here, you have a administration that is one willing to do uncharacteristic things, go after people, right? They've talked about getting their revenge on different folks. Two, they're not going to be shy about it. And three, all parties point towards not liking Mark Zuckerberg. So I think in any way possible, like Mark's going to run into a ton of backlash, a ton of like stopgates put in his way. The biggest risk, end of the day, that would really hurt this business is if they actually start putting bans around teen usage, right? And I think, it's well documented that this causes increased depression, suicide rates amongst teens. They're always going to Capitol Hill, discussions on this where, Mark was forced to apologize to parents of, a teen who committed suicide. But it's all for show. There's never really any penalties put on. There's no blocks. Like, it is ridiculous. And this is a personal opinion that, end of the day, like we age gate so much stuff in the US. We age gate like when you can smoke a cigarette, when you can have alcohol, when you can watch a rated R movie. But you can go on social media online at whatever age you want, as long as your parents allow it, or even though your parents don't know what you're doing, and no problem, engage and watch anything that you want. And so, end of the day, what really hurts them is, regulation, I think, around young users, cutting that off, cutting that addiction off. And end of the day, like that's what's going to really hurt the stock. So that's the huge risk to me is like you never know when that's coming. And I think there's the best shot of it here in the next 4 years with this administration, with these grudges of this actually getting passed. So that's why it trades at a discount. And if you want to take that risk, it's like the super micro risk. It's like the big blow up, right? Like, it takes one stroke of a pen of someone to say, we're creating a law that age gates social media until 18, right? And oh, by the way, you can only show certain types of ads to, certain people. Oh, you got to respect privacy more. All these things are going to ding their ability to monetize advertising and get people on the platform. So with that, I will wrap the bear case. I know you guys are stunned in silence.
All right. Well, let's.
Gordo, I think you're on mute.
Let's go around the horn. Gordo, I think you're on mute. But what is your real view on Meta?
I think that I basically am bullish. I mean, I feel like that was my real view. Basically, I feel like these guys are going to win in AI. I think you guys kind of Bruce, you kind of made a passionate plea that that at these valuations you have to really bet against the Zuck. He's historically done very well with his capital and been very competitive and managed unbelievable changes over the last 20 years. So, he, including like not selling his company, at times that he looked attracted to do so. So, yeah, I'm going to bet on that guy. The valuation allows me, it makes it really easy to do so. And, I feel like, there be some regulatory issues or, some attacks from the administration. I don't know, but I feel like these guys, they're going to live to see another day, and they're really a franchise that are not really fully replaceable by TikTok or anyone else. And, yeah, I like it.
George?
Gonna make me go next. Well, let me ask you guys one question before I get my opinion. What do you think of that regulation piece? Do you think that's realistic? Do you think it never happens?
I think it's a non-factor. I think like the potential Biden win or Kamala win was the biggest risk factor from a regulatory standpoint. I think Lena Khan is out, and that was also kind of a
Well, Lena Khan stops mergers. I mean, they've already been dealing with that. I'm more concerned about like
no.
you
I
know
think she stops
around the team
mergers, but
issue.
I think she could also potentially try to break up the company, and so I think that that could be a risk to the company. I think like with Trump in power, I think that I can go next and give you my real view, and then
Sure.
we can save it. So I'm a bull on Facebook. I think it's one of the highest quality names maybe in the world. It's one of the highest quality companies. They have unprecedented reach. They have the ability to turn on revenue in a way that no other platform does. They have more intel and information on every single probably real computer user in every age demographic across the world, and so I think that gives them the unparalleled ability to do things that ultimately end up on the bottom line and is a real benefit to shareholders. I do think that Trump getting into power was a massive uplift for the stock. Like for the next 4 years, they have like a real clear shot at kind of developing their platform, delivering value. Sorry, it wasn't. It was an uplift for the stock in terms of like the breakup Lena Khan angle. I think the one thing that will potentially hurt the stock though is TikTok. I think that that is the single thing that they should be waking up in the morning thinking about and going to bed thinking about. I think TikTok is a very real competitor for Facebook. I think it takes eyeballs away from them. I think they've built an algorithm that's unprecedented. I think their scale is much bigger than Facebook right now. They're growing faster at much bigger scale, but they have the regulatory tailwind or regulatory headwind themselves.
Not with Trump.
At the end of the day, they are a Chinese company, I think, which will always weigh in their equity. And like in the back of everyone's mind, if this administration at some point in the future flips over to the Democrats, or this administration flips over to a Republican that isn't as favorable to TikTok, that's ultimately could kill the brand in the United States and could kill a lot of their high quality revenue. So, from my perspective, I'm a bull. Like I think Facebook is a very very strong name to own. The two things that are way on the stock from my perspective are TikTok, number one, and secondly, there's sort of like an unknown around the CapEx question and how much they're spending on AI and how that pencils to an actual return on their bottom line. I think it's still like TBD for them versus a lot of their larger competitors in the market. I think they have built a pretty good head start on the open source side. I just it's unclear to me like how that becomes revenue, which ultimately turns into EPS. And this is a type of company that trades on EPS. So that's my view.
So I
All
won.
right.
What you're saying?
Well, we've only been unanimous once before, but I think we'll be unanimous here. So I am actually a bull on this. I will say I do have some of the same hesitations, right, that I talked about and Bruce that you were talking about. I think the regulatory makes me a little nervous here up front. Like I would never get super overweight this name despite the attractive valuation, mainly because I do worry about the regulation at some point. You never know. So I wouldn't get crazy overweighted, but I think it's a great holding. It's best in class, all the things that you said. I do think like TikTok is a concern, but I think after these 4 years, whoever comes in power, like this was a bipartisan issue to ban TikTok. And so like that could very well pick up steam again. So if, they can continue to hold their own for the next 4 years, they might get a tailwind after that. From TikTok facing, the political challenges of just being, under the CCP's thumb there in China. So I'm also a bull on this one. I do personally hold it. I bought some more in August when the market dipped there. So, yeah, three bulls.
There we go. And with that, Bulls win.
I don't think that's
Bears
the saying,
win.
but
Oh,
Bears lose.
Bulls win. Bears
And
win.
pigs
Pigs
get
get
the bacon.
slaughtered.
See you next time, dipshits.
We out. Rah!
Say make money, money, make money, money, money. Make money, money, make money, money, money.